Welcome to Insights from the Couch, where real conversations meet real life at midlife.
We're Colette and Laura, two therapists and best friends, walking through the journey right alongside you. Whether you're feeling stuck, restless, or just unsure of what's next, this is a space for honest conversations, messy truths, and meaningful change.
And our Midlife Masterclass is now open. If you're looking to level up, get into action, and make midlife the best season yet, go to insightsfromthecouch.org and join our waitlist. Now let's dive in. Welcome back to Insights from the Couch, guys. We have a great episode for you today on a topic that might be near and dear to your heart, one that you might not even realize you're struggling with: burnout. Not stress, not busy, not overwork, legitimate burnout. It can happen in relationships, but of course it most often happens in careers, and it can happen just in life. So today we're going to talk to you about what burnout really is from a legitimate clinical standpoint, the signs and markers, 5 signs that you're headed there, and then what you can do to help, because sometimes we can't get out of our circumstances and we have to change the way we're living.
Yeah, I see this a lot, right? I mean, and it's a really fine line. Like, where does stress end? Where does chronic stress end? Or even just like good stress, and sort of cross the Rubicon into burnout.
Yeah.
And they have like 3 components, right? That really make up burnout.
Well, and according to the World Health Organization, because I was looking into this, burnout really is chronic stress, but it's a particular kind of chronic stress. So let's talk about the 3 markers first.
Okay.
That exhaustion, right? And this is exhaustion where you get a good night's sleep and you wake up and you're still exhausted. And unfortunately, I've been there too many times in my life where I don't want to get out of bed. I have a pit of dread. I've slept for 7 hours and I still feel like, oh my God, I could just hide here all day.
Yes. I mean, for some reason, and even when I'm kind of in a stress cyclone currently, but there's something about me that I really hover around homeostasis and balance. And so my body, I'm always trying to get back there. So I actually haven't experienced burnout in this sense, the way I hear some clients talking about it. I have some clients that are just consistently burned out, just from their approach to living, where they're always describing this overwhelmed sense of exhaustion. But even in a season of chronic stress that I'm in right now, I have moments where I think I'm headed to a burnout, and where it's you just get back from work and you want to get back into your PJs, or you wake up and you're dragging.
That's not necessarily a sign. I'm going to raise my hand in defense of that. That's me every day. I get home and I want to get in comfy clothes and cozy up. But
dropping like a rock. I feel there's something I want to get cozy too. I feel there's a different sense of oh, the evening has some possibilities for rest and relaxation and fetal position on the couch.
Agreed. So let's talk about these 2 other markers, because it's not just exhaustion. It's the combination of all of this together. And the next one is cynicism and detachment. And I mean, wait, you've never been in a season of this? You've never felt burned out as a mental health professional? Or what's going on in your life?
Right now. This is as close as I've come to bottoming out in my life, where I just feel a sense of just there are certain days that have felt very heavy.
Yep.
But I just tend toward I don't overwhelm myself. I haven't I don't tend to overstuff my plate. I haven't had when my dad was dying felt incredibly overwhelming. Certain seasons, certain acute moments, but my life doesn't tend to feel like I run on burnout.
Yeah. And I think this is where, not everybody can change the variables in their lives. So it's great if we don't tend to overwhelm ourselves and we calibrate, but sometimes what people have on their plate, the nature of their career, they're going through a divorce, somebody died, like you just mentioned. I had moments during the book launch where I felt like I'm just getting so burned out that I can't even enjoy this anymore because it was just one activity and travel after another. But I think part of why we want to raise the alarm bell on this is that a lot of these signs may indicate that you're slipping into burnout rather than you're all the way there, and some of what you can do to help. Because I think I flit into some of this, but don't go all the way there either. And part of the reason is that when it gets too much, I'll bring in some of these tips we're going to give you guys today to make sure that I recalibrate. And also part of it is we have had a huge advantage in that our training really caters to this, teaching you how to avoid burnout, because it's such a problem in the mental health field when you're going to work, listening to people's stories. For years, I've been a certified EMDR professional, which is
Mhm.
all trauma. Couples are in a lot of distress. You hear such heavy, tragic stories, and also just people who are sad and down, and we're meeting them in that. So all that heaviness can really take a toll on your nervous system. And I think the cynicism and detachment goes along with this marker of things that are normally fun for you, you're not even excited about anymore. That's always a signal to
Yeah.
me. Like I have plans with friends or I have a vacation planned and I'm not even excited. I'm not even
Oh,
looking forward to it. I'd rather just stay home and hide.
that's like a sign. Yeah. I mean, for me, it teeters around. It's the like coming home, hitting the couch. I usually like to do a whole routine at night with my husband and my dog and walking. And it's like, that's not happening. I'm eating some random dinner that's probably high in carbohydrates. And then I'm like fetal position on the couch. But you know what also occurs to me that we didn't talk about in the three pieces here? It's what I find the biggest driver of burnout is when people have like hopelessness, when
Yep.
they're in a season without end. Like when I have a lot of clients who have family members that are just protractedly aging, and it's one health emergency after another, and it's just demanding. They're in the emergency room, and then, or a partner's mental health is flailing, and it's like, and then there's like work stress. And so it's like bam, bam, bam. And you have no idea when the end of that season is
Or if
coming.
there ever will be an end. I mean, I
Yes.
think about clients trapped in a bad marriage.
Chronic debt. I have young people paying off loans, and they have no idea when that's coming to an end, if they'll ever be able to dig out of it.
Yeah, or a family member is sick, like you're talking
Yeah.
about. And those seasons though are so hard, but some people don't slip into, they may be exhausted and overwhelmed. And some of the markers we're pointing to, even at times, like what you describe about the evening, sometimes those are coping mechanisms that are arguably somewhat maladaptive. Maybe I'm just defensive because I do that all the time, like a sugary, carbohydrate meal, detaching and decompressing with TV. It's not that, for me, is not necessarily a sign I'm burned out. Those are old vestiges of ways I learned to cope with life, stress, being tired, being recovering from being on as a teenager, that I still enjoy. But I think this piece of the loss of hope, of joy,
Yes.
of anything, like you're just sort of, and the third marker, the reduced effectiveness. You're really, and this is what I see with a lot of clients, all of a sudden people who are very capable, they are high functioning, very intelligent people, and they can't concentrate, they
Yes.
can't pay attention, they're not accomplishing as much at work. And that's a real sign to me when I can no longer, sometimes I get very procrastinatory and I don't want to do the task. But if I'm trying, once I get in, I'm usually in the zone and I'll have to, push myself in there. But if I find that I can't concentrate, I'm reading the
Mm.
same thing over and over. I go to work and I just feel like I'm pushing myself through my sessions. Those are signs that I need to really kick my butt into legitimate self-care gear.
Yes, it is. It's that apathetic, like 1,000-yard stare where it's like you couldn't give a crap what is coming around the corner. You need to be left alone, like right now. You
Yep.
need to get responsibility off your plate. And I think for me, what I'm describing, and those are old coping mechanisms for me from when I was young as well. But that's my version of burnout. Like maybe there's like another rung lower that I think you can go far lower with burnout to the point where you're really like laying in bed and not going to work.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there's like multiple levels, but it's like, can you catch yourself as you're starting to decompensate and starting to like slip in functioning?
Yeah. Decompensate, meaning like you're kind of breaking
Crappy coping. Yeah, you're breaking
down.
down. You care a little less. You're less effective at work. You're getting less done.
Yeah, and distinguish between a couple things. First of all, you can be burned out for the day, where you come home and you're just like, oh my God, I am going to die if I have to talk to another person. I think we definitely experience this as counselors. I have a very high social battery. If I don't want to talk to people, I need rest. Like that is a major sign. Now, it doesn't mean I'm slipping into a season of burnout, but it may be enough for that day. I need to go be quiet. And the most restorative thing for me is to read. But the other thing I want to distinguish between is stress, which is like I've got too much to do. I'm buzzing around, and maybe at moments I feel overwhelmed, but I haven't lost my sense of meaning or purpose. And burnout, which is when you reach a place where you're exhausted, detached, not effective, and you really feel like I don't even care
I don't
anymore.
really care.
That's the major, and this is a season of chronicity. And, a couple more signs just in terms of symptomatic, whether or not this applies to you. You're more irritable than
Mhm.
usual. You can't concentrate. You're emotionally flat, like something that would normally bring a little joy and you just kind of don't feel much, like that numbing out. You fantasize about escape, and we also mentioned the loss of anticipation and pleasure, but that fantasizing about escape, right? Like something magical needs to happen. And I've been here too,
Yeah.
where it's like maybe if I win the lottery, or I'll just imagine I live on an island by myself and there's peace and quiet.
Yeah, I'll just slip into I used to think of like I would just like slip into a crowd. Nobody would ever find me
Yeah,
again.
yeah, just wanting
Yeah.
to escape because it's too much. And I think this is really hard. What people don't realize is that, we all get tired and overwhelmed, but really getting into a season of this can dramatically impact your mental and physical health. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that can affect your heart health, that can lead to autoimmune disorders, all kinds of things if you were not careful.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that there's a type of person that this happens to, but I think there is a type of person that this is attracted that is trends towards burnout more easily. I think people who have a strong tendency to people please, who are very type A hard workers that like can really exceed their limits pretty easily for long periods of
Right. Don't
time.
pull back when they could and should because of
Yes.
that driver part.
And that's what I'm saying is like, I don't have that. Like, I trend towards like my marble stays in the middle kind of automatically. Like, I have a hard time driving hard. So, we don't get there as quickly as some people do.
You'll recalibrate. You'll
Yeah.
go, okay, I've had too much. And I do this same thing.
But I think some personalities don't have that. Like, the brakes aren't necessarily there. And they kind of like push forward hard. So they just burnout finds them more easily than other personalities.
Yeah, it's a really great point. We see that in counseling, where to distinguish between what we talked about earlier, where you're going through something that's out of your control, that's happening to you, a season, which times that I've been burned out, I'm thrust into something that's depleting, and I don't have the resources to cope with the existing amount of pressure and joylessness and exhaustion that's happening versus somebody who there may be things, there may be room in your life, but you have parts of self that
Yes.
push you past capacity. The people pleasing, you're not speaking up for yourself, you're not setting boundaries. The classic high functioning type A, hyper independent woman who
Yes.
doesn't ask for help because nobody else does it right, who has beliefs of self that like only I can do it, nobody else will do it if I don't.
Nobody will help me. Nobody ever has. Or
Right.
I should be doing this.
I should be able to get it all
All
done.
done. Yeah. And these are the people, we're going to talk in a minute about what helps with this, but these are the people that are always trying to optimize stress and always are adding things in to
Yep.
make it better. Well, I should be going to Pilates. That's what's going to make it better. Or I should be like
Right.
meal prepping. That's what's going to be making it better. So the list just gets,
Making homemade organic baby food. Yeah, if you have
yes.
kids at home. Well, and exactly. And I've had this at seasons. I've had times I do believe in a good morning ritual. I'm not doing it right now, but I've had seasons of life where I'm getting up early. I'm very intentional about meditation. I'm doing morning pages from Julia Cameron's Artist Way, where
Yep.
you write stream of consciousness and fill 3 pages. It's wonderful, wonderful activity for your creativity. And I will credit that with really helping me to be able to write my book, The Cost of Quiet. But there isn't always time and space for that. And sometimes you see this stuff of like, get up and have boiling lemon water and like
It's a
connect
stack
to
of
your inner
behaviors.
yes,
Take
that
a
you
cold shower.
right, right.
Yeah. It's like, come on.
Exercise, do this, meditate. So you're right. A lot of times we can push ourselves to add more in an attempt to quell stress, but it actually contributes to burnout. And this is where I think really knowing yourself and being connected to yourself is so, so, so important. And of course, one of the major things is not speaking up for yourself.
Yeah, not asking for help, not saying like I can't take anymore. I'm at capacity. Like somebody's got to do XYZ because I can't do it for a while.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking, absolutely, in more general terms, though, about just when we talk about personality types or things that trend toward contributing to burnout, people who don't speak honestly and truthfully about what they're feeling and wanting and needing. Because this comes from a lot of emotional depletion. Burnout really doesn't tend to be as much. Like right now, I am super busy, but I realize I'm not feeling burned out. And and I'm arguably too busy. So there's stress
Have
and
you
there's
flirted with? I feel like you flirted with burnout.
yeah, during the book launch season for
Like when
sure.
you told me about the airplane situation, I was like, "Oh shit, she's not good."
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't really want to do that, but I watched this documentary. I can't remember what it was called, but it's about this guy. I'd never heard the story. I think it's 2018. This guy who was working for an airline like he was working for the airline as an air traffic control, like the guy who's on the runway with the lights. And if I'm getting the details wrong, don't come at me too hard. Something like that. Well, he was feeling so actually burned out in his job, hopeless about getting a promotion, overwhelmed, like he was failing his wife, even though I don't know that she felt that way. That's how he was feeling about himself. He couldn't get ahead despite working so hard, applying for jobs, applying for promotions. They weren't making financial ends meet. So he steals an airplane. And no, I mean, it's really
No,
sad. It
it's
was
really
a
sad, but like this is when like burnout runs amok, right? It's like something desperate happens.
right. I mean, this is a pretty extreme example, but I remember watching it thinking like, oh, wow. Like he ends up running the plane into the ground. He didn't injure anyone else, but he took his own life, which is really, really
Yeah.
heartbreakingly sad. And I'm kind of sarcastically joking to you at this time, like, wow, never thought of that. And I don't mean to make light of somebody dying by suicide, of course.
The context we talked about it in is that like oh my God, like this guy wanted something. He couldn't make it happen. Like, what
Yeah.
if it really doesn't get better? And like, what if you reach a point of like hopelessness where it's like you do something like dramatic, but like, it's like, what if you don't get what you want? And I think that's where a lot of like real depletion comes from, because if you can feel like you're working hard in service for something, you can keep the climb going. But it's like
Agreed.
when you feel like you're not being effective or you may never get there, the hopelessness can be so heavy. And God forbid, and this has been like the season of selling my house. I mean, I haven't really talked a lot about it, but it's been so outside my control. I had expectations that it would be so much easier. It was so much harder. Mistakes were made. Things were outside my control at times. And I
Yeah,
had
mistakes that
no,
cost you a lot of money, like not just like, oh, that's a bummer, like
yeah,
real
like
hardship.
real hardship, real unpredictability. And you have other things, other major milestones sort of sitting on top of it. Like you still have to function and work. You still have to like send a kid to college. So there's other stuff. And you're just like, I don't know if I can do all this or carry all this without like, especially in the unpredictability of it all. So I
Yeah.
think it's hope. Hope can carry people through a lot of difficulty.
Okay, I couldn't agree more. And when I look back on this season where I was, and the times when I was really flirting with burnout connected to my book, a big part of it, it wasn't really the schedule. It was the loss of hope. I really wanted my book to be a New York Times bestseller. It was a 3-year climb. I put all my resources in it. I was still working through this whole thing. That's where it starts to feel like, I'm working all week. I'm flying around to these book events. You know, does anyone even care? Am I impacting anybody? And of course I was, but I wasn't feeling that always. And that's where it starts to feel the hopelessness, the pointlessness, the loss of energy for it. And I think this is why I feel very stressed and busy now. I have a ridiculous amount on my plate again, and it doesn't feel the same way because I feel connected to new goals. I'm hearing from people about how the book is impacting them in a less pressured way. The book's selling. I've made peace with the fact that it's not going to be a New York Times bestseller. I mean, you never know, maybe one day in the future. But, I didn't accomplish that with launch, and I let myself grieve that and move on. And also, I did what I needed. I readjusted some as soon as this busy launch season got over with. I realized, okay, I need some downtime. I need time with friends, really close people for real connection. I need some quiet time. I need some mental space again.
Mhm.
Some of these things that have to be brought back, but you are absolutely right that burnout is tied to a feeling of trapped, loss of hope, Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the hill again and again and again and again, and I can't get out of this thing that isn't bringing me purpose and meaning.
You nailed it. And also it's like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. Like you've got way too much, and some of that stuff is way too heavy. And maybe you could carry one of those things, but
Yep,
you can't carry three.
exactly.
And so and I think women at midlife, and this is why we're talking about it now, are so prone to falling or tripping into this season because we are needed for some big things. I
Yep.
mean, watching parents age or need like help figuring out where you're going to put them in an assisted living facility and, those kinds of things like really drag people into overwhelm, and then with their careers, like there's so many compounding factors at this phase
I
that,
agree.
and we have that loss of like I was sitting with a friend and she said, our life as a family, we are not at that prime phase. She said, like, when I was 35, I had young kids and everybody was growing and moving forward, and my parents were healthy and they were still able to like be active. And she's like, and I was in the prime of my life. She says, now it's like I'm grieving my kids. My parents are struggling with their health. She's like, I've gained weight. Like, I don't even like not, and this is not burnout, but it's the setup job
For
that it's
burnout.
like, oh, like life
Yeah.
is a little bit like heavier and not as
Oh,
hopeful.
I agree. I agree. And I think this is why part of like, let's start talking about the tips of what can help is we've
Yeah.
got to find some purpose and meaning even in the midst, because the reality is we're in the sandwich generation at midlife. We're caring for aging parents. We're losing our parents. We have, in many ways, our children, some people are still caring for children or we're sending them off into the world. People have busy careers. A lot of people, not everyone, but have real financial stressors. I think this is something that we as therapists really understand because people talk about it in the therapy room. A lot of those people you see in the big houses that don't seem like they have a care in the world have a lot of financial problems that we don't see on social media. Retirement goals aren't being met, debts, massive expenses for kids in college, feeling that I hear from a lot of clients and I can relate to it, just hemorrhaging money,
Yeah.
bleeding money. And even if you're kind of okay, that can feel really scary. So you can't fix the variables of this season sometimes, but we've got to find things that genuinely bring, and it's not just, oh, I need to have fun. It's not a freaking
Mm-mm.
bubble bath. It's not a
No,
day at the spa. It's something deeper than that.
it's not an evening at the bar. It's I think the biggest thing is like step one is what can you take off your plate is
Subtraction.
in editing. I learned this back to my house drama. I learned this I put almost all my stuff in boxes and I had like very little in my house. And the mental effect of that was quite pleasing. My life felt very simple and straightforward. And I
Yeah.
think this goes for responsibilities. It goes for being able to say no to things,
Yeah.
like take a
Yeah.
step back and
Yeah.
really simplifying and streamlining your life. Maybe you do that for just a little while, but
I
it can
agree.
have a huge impact.
I agree. Instead of adding a new workout and a new meditation, if you're flirting with burnout, take things off, pull back, simplify your life. And this may include delegating, and you might not be that comfortable with that. Ask for help, even if you're not comfortable with it. Let people do things for you or tasks that you would normally handle yourself because they have to be just so. Let people do them imperfectly and pull back to simplify. Clean things out. Spend time at home, going for walks. And the number two is connected to this non-digital connection. And I really want to specify the non-digital because not that there isn't a place for social media. I'm not saying it's all bad, even though I really don't think it's great, but it doesn't produce the same neurochemicals. We need the oxytocin that comes from being with people in proximate, real physical presence, eye contact, laughter, deep,
Laughter.
meaningful. Yes.
Huge.
There's a reason laughter yoga, even though I know it sounds crazy and I've never done it, there's a reason it's a big thing. Laughter produces neurochemicals that make you feel better. And when you are with people who know you and care about you, and you can really talk about what you're experiencing and hear that they might relate and laugh with them, and there's no better medicine.
I still remember our trip to Del Rey where we spent that whole night laughing. Do you remember that?
Yes, and I don't remember even why or
Well,
what
I
we.
know why, but it was
Why?
like just so freaking funny. We'll talk about it
Okay,
later.
okay,
But
okay.
we
Oh wait, now
laughed
I remember.
so hard. And I can still think about that and I can be like, that was like peak, right? Like when you're with somebody that you like are close to, something is so genuinely funny. You're like in tears, like, oh, that's the
Okay,
stuff.
it's so true. And we just laughed the whole night
I could
uncontrollably
laugh
about
thinking about it
nothing
again.
and everything. I know it's making me laugh to think about it. But, as we're subtracting, maybe you're not going to a million cocktail parties and random things and feeling pressure to network or saying yes to even party invitations or whatever might feel obligatory. Say no, it's okay, but spend time with a good friend. Reach
Yeah.
out to somebody, which we
Quality,
do.
quality
Yeah,
over quantity.
quality connection, which we don't tend to want to reach out when we're in this state
Mhm.
because of that urge to hibernate, but this is when you need your people the most.
I agree. And then I would also say, like, just go back to basics. This is a time to like eat as well as you can. Like you nurture yourself like you have the flu almost. Like you put yourself to bed at a decent time. You get a
Yes.
walk in nature, you touch grass, you see sun, you like treat yourself like an ill patient and make sure you're just like doing the basics of caring for yourself. And that is the big rock. Like that is the biggest thing you can do.
Because this is really about recharging the emotional battery.
Mhm.
It's not really a physical, I'm so busy. It's really getting back to you've almost got to reset all of your basic components with a dose of connection every day, a dose of nature, right? Like you said, touch grass, feel the sun, go for, and if you can't manage a lot, go for a short walk. I mean, it's amazing how these little things where you pull back and take care of yourself can start to recharge the battery even in little ways. And all of this may be enough to also give you some space to go, okay, how do I need to live differently? Because that's really what burnout is, a sign,
Yeah.
if you're willing to listen to your body, that maybe I can't control these external variables, but I need to live my life differently. I can't carry the mental load anymore. I can't swallow my words and live in the cave of resentment, as I always call it. I can't continue to work this job that I don't really need financially or logistically, but I've been doing for 20 years and I'm scared to let go of because it's my identity. Like, what? Maybe I can't stay in this marriage anymore because it's costing me too much. So, you need the space and the emotional energy to really evaluate your life too.
Yeah. Yeah, and it takes a little bit of courage to do that. And people, have their coping mechanisms. And there's this amazing thing on how it's talking about burnout and what surrender looks like. And it's this like cartoon of this woman who's knitting. She's knitting compulsively, but as she knits, it's pulling her over the cliff and she can't put it down and she runs out of string. Have you seen this one?
Yes.
And then she starts knitting her hair because she's just so compulsive, right?
Keep
And
going.
then,
Keep going.
yeah, she keeps going and she just runs out of hair. And finally, she like falls over the cliff with her hair and because she can't stop. And she finally like is climbing up over the cliff and her hair's all gone. Like she took the strategy all the way to the end because she couldn't pull back. And finally she's laying there depleted, like, oh my God, like what I'm ruined. I'm just like, I'm done. I'm cooked. And then she looks at her knitting needles and she's like, oh, it was this. And then she finally throws them over the cliff. But it took destroying herself, eviscerating herself before she could like let go. And I think that's the story of a lot of people who have to confront, especially some of these personalities that have to confront burnout. Their strategies are the last thing to go. They don't know how to put them down. And that's, a lot of the work.
And that's what we're saying. Exactly. It's the perfect vignette. Don't let it get to that place because we see with clients, this is so common, the strategies. Human beings don't want to change. We don't like change. We will keep doing what's familiar, which feels better, even when it's really bad for us. So part of this reframe is ask yourself, instead of, oh, well, this is happening to me. Okay, certain things might be happening that I can't control, but what within the way I'm living could change, even if it scares me?
Yeah.
Just start to ask questions, right? Ask yourself, if you're wondering if this applies to you today, when was the last time I really looked forward to something? And if you can't answer yes and nothing comes to mind, that might be a sign. And ask yourself, when was the last time I felt recharged, purposeful, hopeful, excited about where my life is heading. And if you can't think of a time or that doesn't feel true for you, these may be signs that burnout applies. So as we close out here, what helps, just to recap what we're saying, start subtracting, do not add new rituals, workout routines, take things off your plate, delegate, pull back. Make time and space, though, for real, meaningful connection with close, safe, reliable loved ones, non-digital, not on your phone, face-to-face. Make sure you're recovering emotionally through that connection. It's not really just physical. Your nervous system needs to reset. Get out in nature, small doses of things to nurture yourself as if you were sick. Touch grass, see the sky, feel the sun on your face, go for a short walk. And it goes without saying, speak up, tell the truth about what you feel and what you want and what you need. Give yourself permission to say no and have boundaries. If you are holding on to things and pushing them inside, all of this contributes to a life in which you're susceptible to burnout. So start doing those behaviors now.
Yeah, that was a really great, you just recapped the whole thing. But I do want to say the last thing is that be mindful that the consciousness that created the burnout is not necessarily the consciousness that's going to get you out of it.
Yes.
You may have to really shift into what am I not willing, what is the thing that I'm not willing to look at that's going to be the thing that's really going to help me here?
Ooh,
because
you're so right.
Yeah, we tend to just drift, with those knitting needles, to try to solve the problem. But it's really the putting down of the knitting needles that's going to get you in the other direction.
Yeah, and I think just an example of that would be how I'm approaching this season. I am such a worker bee that I could feel myself going back to having 1,000 therapy sessions a week again, because that's what I do and what I've done for 15 years, and that's natural. And I really enjoy therapy in a lot of ways. But I had to get very conscious about that's my familiarity. That's my drift. That's my automatic go-to. But now I'm not just a therapist. I have these other things that I'm doing with my life and my career. So I have to be very conscious about breaking my old patterns and doing what might be a little bit uncomfortable, but will prevent me from hitting burnout. So think about how that applies to you. And hopefully this gave you some great markers to evaluate if you're flirting with burnout, if you're already there. If you are there, maybe it's time to go talk to a professional, get a really good coach, talk to a therapist, at least get into conversation with a friend about it, because a lot of people are struggling with this. You're not alone. And sometimes you need a little perspective and help to deal with it. So if nothing else, maybe this helps you prevent yourself from getting there.
Amen. I think we did
All right.
it.
Yeah. Well, we hope, as always, you got some valuable insights from our couch today, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Bye, guys.